for this lesson, we're going to go ahead and focus on fractions, and in order to do so, I do want to make sure that we all understand the basic knowledge of fractions, what makes a fraction, what is a fraction, the different parts of the fraction. So we're going to go ahead and begin with the basics. Now, there are two different parts of a fraction. The first, known as the numerator, and the numerator, which is the top number. We're just going to go ahead and use 1/2. This is the top number, and this represents the parts of a whole. Parts of a whole. So I'm going to go ahead and take some time to write that part down. Now, the numerator is always at the top. At the top, and whenever you see a fraction, there's always the number at the top, and then they do have the dividing line here. And then there is also the number on the bottom. Now, the number on the bottom, we're just going to go ahead and use 4. So there's 1, 4. This number is the denominator. And this represents the whole unit. Now, as we take a look here, with what we have, the numerator is the number on top. It does represent the parts of a whole, basically the parts being used, the parts that are, let's say we have, okay, let me go ahead and use this as a demonstration. Go ahead and make sure you write this down. The numerator is the top number, signified by the blue, the denominator signified by the red, which is always the number at the bottom. This represents the whole, this represents the part of the whole. Now, we're going to go ahead and use a quick demonstration. Now, for this, I'm going to go ahead and take a circle, like so. It's not going to be a very good circle, but it's a circle. This here, divided into 4. Supposed to be equal pieces. Now, let me see. This is 1. It's a whole. There's 4 different parts that make a whole. So the denominator again, being 4. This is the denominator, number on the bottom. I'm sorry. Okay, number on the bottom is 4. Denominator. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. Now, at the go ahead and insert the line here to show the divider. This is the divider separating the two numbers. Now, the number that we had at the beginning was 1/4. That was the fraction. So, let's say this represents a pizza, for instance, and 1, 2, 3, 4 different slices. So we're looking for 1/4. So let's say maybe there's 1/4 of a pizza that's been eaten. So we're just going to go ahead and shade in that 1/4 that's been eaten. That's 1/4. So this graph is actually a demonstration of this fraction here. It's one of the 4 parts. Again, you know, the numerator does represent the part of the whole that is being used, the part of the whole that's being represented. Now in this here, in this instance, this is the 1 of the 4. So as this is this here. So we're going to go ahead and change the number at the top, the numerator, and change that to, let's say, 3/4 for this demonstration. It'll be 3/4. So in order to represent the 3, we'll go ahead and take 1, 2, 3, shade those in, and this will be the representation of 3/4. Now, what I thoroughly enjoy about fractions is how they can relate to each other. This fraction here, the 3/4, cannot relate to 1/2. Let me go ahead and write that down there. These two are not, they're not equal. They're not, because half of this here, half would mean that there's only half of it shaded. Now, whenever there's half of it shaded, how many fourths are shaded will go on the top, on the numerator. So this here is 2/4, and those two are equivalent. And it's very important that we know that we're able to use the charts to be able to express how fractions relate to one another. This is the 1/2 can also be represented as 2/4, because if we take the same demonstration and we cut it in half, and it looks exactly the same as the 2/4. Let me go ahead and draw that really quickly. It'll be a little smaller. Here, cut it in half. And if we were to shade this half here, it is identical to the 2/4 here. So we see how these two are related. Let me go ahead and erase this. And we're going to go ahead and get, instead of using circles, we'll use rectangles. So if we go ahead and take the rectangles like so. They look very bad, by the way. I'm sorry. And let's say that we're going to compare 1/3 and 1/2. And we're going to go ahead and see how these two relate to each other based strictly on the graphs here. So we're going to have one that we're going to cut into 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, and then one that we're going to cut into 2 parts, 1, 2. So if we take a look at these here, we go ahead and check to see 1/3. We need 1 of the 3, so we're going to go ahead and shade in. That's not dark enough. We're going to go ahead and shade in this 1 of the 3, and then we see the 1/2. We're going to go ahead and shade in the 1 of the 2. And by using these types of demonstrations, these graphs and this drawings, we'll be able to gain a better understanding. We do see here, based on the drawing, that 1/2 is bigger than 1/3. So these two will not be equivalent, but we are able to see that 1/2 is greater than 1/3. So whenever dealing with fractions, it does make it a lot easier to be able to actually draw it out so that we're able to understand how that they relate to one another. With these types of demonstrations, it's really easy to gain that understanding. So whenever there's a test or there's something that's going on with fractions, it would be a good idea to go ahead and use these types of demonstrations. It's easy. You can do it for yourself. If it's easier to use a circle, you can do that also. But for the most part, this is what we come up with. And of course, the top number again is the numerator, which is the shaded part, and it represents the number or the parts of the whole that's being used. And the denominator represents the entire shape. It represents the whole. And only of the whole three, only one is being used. So that's how we go ahead and determine which part of the shape will be shaded. And it does help if there's any questions. Please feel free to ask, and I hope it was enjoyable. Thank you.